everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name's Meredith E. Phillips, and you should be seeing this video on Thursday, April 2nd, which is a very important date in my writing career. On April 2nd, 2016, I sat down and started writing my very first book. That was exactly 10 years ago. I cannot believe it's been 10 years since I started on this writing journey, but 2016 was in fact 10 years ago, and it is 2026 today, so here we are. I had gotten an idea for a young adult fantasy novel on my way to work the day previous. I had jotted down a few notes, and in my little brain at the time, I was like, well, surely that is enough to get going. And I started drafting a novel on April 2nd. I had a very fun time drafting that book. In 6 weeks, I ended up writing about 112,000 words, including the end. I thought it was pretty dang good. I was pretty convinced it was, the next New York Times bestseller. Spoiler alert, it was not. It was actually pretty horrific, but I didn't know that yet. I was just basking in the glory of how amazing I was. So it's taken me 10 years to hone my skill, get to the point I'm at now, and I have thought through 10 different lessons that I have learned over the last 10 years, and I'm going to share those with you today. Some of these are sort of overarching, big picture, how to think about writing type things. Other things are a little more like actual little pieces of advice for your writing. I don't think there's any such thing as prescriptive writing advice, so I don't mean you to take all of this, applies to absolutely everyone. Take what you think would work for you, leave the rest, you know the drill. But let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing on my list here is that age does not matter. I had just turned 30 when I had this idea for a book and started writing. I just turned 40 a few weeks ago, and I've gotten an agent. I have a book deal now, which is very exciting, but it took a minute to get here. I had what I would consider maybe a late start to writing. A lot of people are like, I was writing my first book with a crayon when I was 5 years old. That was not me. I had no thought of entering the publishing industry at all up until 10 years ago. And so age really is just a number. I remember when I first got started, I used to hear people, I feel like people talked about this maybe more in the past. I don't feel like I hear it quite as much anymore, which is good. But I feel like I have heard definitely over the years people saying, oh my gosh, like I'm 28, I don't have an agent yet, and they're like freaking out like they're behind, or if they get to be too old, no one's going to pay attention to them or want to work with them. I don't know where that attitude comes from, because I've never, in the last 10 years, never heard an agent, an editor, any kind of professional within the publishing industry say, oh, you better get a book contract by the time you're 30 or otherwise you're SOL. Like, that's not a thing. The publishing industry is a business. What do businesses want? They want to make money. Can you make them money? Great. You're in. Whether you're 26, whether you're 66, it doesn't matter. If you can make them money, they would love to work with you. So if you're younger than me, if you're older than me, don't worry about how old you are when it comes to publishing. That really has nothing to do with anything. And honestly, I alluded to this a little bit in the writing retreat video I posted a couple weeks back, but I'm glad that I am this old, having gotten an agent and getting a publishing deal. Like, I'm glad I'm 40 and that's where I am. If this had happened to me when I was 25, say, like 15 years ago, I just feel like I would have been in over my head completely. There's a lot that goes into this that I think, depending on who you are as a person, of course, but having those extra years is not a bad thing. Okay, lesson number 2 is keep your eyes on your own paper. Don't be looking over here at how far they've gotten or what they've achieved or what they have coming down the pipeline. Keep your eyes on your own paper. This is not a contest. There's no reason to rush through things. You focus on you. It's really easy to play the comparison game and look over there and say, oh my gosh, like they only were writing for a year and they got an agent and I've been writing for 5 years and what do I have to show for? Like, don't worry. Everybody's timeline in this industry is unique and different. So keep your eyes on your own paper. Just don't put on the blinders and just focus on what you're doing and trying to do your best work. The third lesson is a little bit of a piggyback off of that one, but it is to take your time. Don't rush. There's no need to rush. The agents are going to be there. The publishing industry is going to be there. I know there's a lot of doom and gloom surrounding especially traditional publication at the moment. Everything's crumbling. They're firing editors. Imprints are closing. It's taking forever. No one's getting edits anymore. Blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of this negativity, and it's not that it's unfounded necessarily. There are definitely issues within the industry. I'm not denying that at all. But they're publishing books. Human beings have been publishing books for kind of a while now. I think it's been, I don't know, centuries. So we're okay. The industry might shift and change over time. Industries are wont to do that. So things might change, but publishing books is always going to be a thing. We'll always be able to do this because people want those stories. So don't rush. It's gonna be here for you. Take your time, hone your craft. Be confident in who you are as a writer and let that take the time it's going to take. Lesson number 4 is that your writing process is going to be unique to you. Nobody else is going to go from an idea to a completed draft to a revised project in exactly the same way that you do. This is both great and terrible because no one can tell you how to do it. It's up to you to figure it out. You can read craft books. You can watch YouTubers here sharing their own process or their own advice. You can read blog posts. You can talk to editors or other people in the industry and get an idea of what other people do. You can certainly try what other people do, but at the end of the day, you're going to find that you're going to take a little piece of advice or structure from this craft book. You're going to take a little piece of advice from this writer, a little piece of advice from this publishing expert, whatever. You're going to Frankenstein your own writing process. And some of it is just going to come from your own brain. You're going to be like, I don't know why this seems to work, but it does. Do that weird thing. It's fine. It also, of course, does not matter if you are a plotter or a pantser, if you just start on draft 1 before you really even know what you're doing. Like, just go for it. You'll figure it out. It might take a while. I feel like it took me a long time, years and years, multiple projects to figure out my writing process, but I got there. I got there in the end. I took my time. I wasn't rushing. I was keeping my eyes on my own paper, right? And I know my writing process now. So you'll have to figure yours out on your own timeline, but it will be unique to you. All right, lesson number 5 might be, I don't know if this is a hot take. That kind of is a dramatic way to say this, but I do think that you need to be consistent in order to get ahead. You need to write in order to be a writer, and you need to figure out a consistent writing routine. Now, little caveat, there are seasons in life where this is just simply not possible. If you have just had a baby, you probably should have the baby as your first priority, you know, like maybe not, I don't know, I don't have kids, but I imagine that most parents are like, let me put the baby first, right? If that's where you are in life, take time for your baby. Don't worry about writing. If you've had like a family medical emergency where you have a loved one in the hospital for an extended period of time, like obviously that's your first priority. If you're in the middle of a move or you're transitioning jobs and things are just crazy, like there's times in life where writing just has to take a backseat. It just does, and that's okay. So I'm not talking about creating a writing routine when your life is in chaos. Not that. Regular, everyday life. Sometimes life can be busy, but whatever your normal sort of life routine is, you have to figure out how to create a writing routine within that. Some people are going to have more time than others. Don't worry about how much time other people are spending on their writing. Figure out a consistent writing routine for yourself. It does not have to be every day. I don't think you need to write every day to be a writer, but you do need to have some sort of consistency. Maybe you can really only find time to write on Monday, Wednesday, Fridays. Great, do it. Make it a priority to get that writing time in. Maybe you really only have time on like Sunday afternoon from 2 to 5. Make that your time. Pick your times, experiment, try things out. Maybe you need to stay up late. and write once everyone else in the house has gone to bed. I like to get up early. Well, okay, like is a strong word, but I found that if I get up early and that is the first thing that I sit down to do, there's nothing that can interrupt it. Who else is awake? No one. Everyone else is still asleep. I'm right here at my desk. I'm getting my work done. I'm not distracted by my day job. I'm not distracted thinking, oh, I've got to get dinner ready. I'm not distracted with dogs or pets or whatever. Like, it's just me and my computer. I can get my work done. And that has worked really well for me for quite a few years now. So figure out your writing routine and be as consistent as possible with it. I see a lot of people who say they want to write with the intention of publishing, whether that's trad or self-pub, but there's always excuses. Well, I was really tired this day, or oh, well, I had to go out and do this other thing, or well, there's always an excuse. No more excuses. Do you want to do it? Okay, well, you got to figure out a time to do it. There's never going to be a day or like a extended period of time where you've got tons and tons of free time where you're feeling completely refreshed and it's just easy. It's not easy. You have to find that time and make it a priority for yourself. Okay, lesson number 6 is that outline templates like Save the Cat, the Snowflake Method, Romancing the Beat, all of those kind of things are wonderful tools, but they are not rules. I cannot tell you how long it took me to figure out that they are not the be-all end-all of writing. I tried so hard for so many years to like shoehorn my story ideas into fitting these templates, and it doesn't work like that because it's not supposed to work like that. You can move beats around. You can ignore some beats. You can have scenes in your outline that are not a beat necessarily, okay? Please don't look at those templates as something that you have to follow rigidly. They are flexible. They're meant to be a helpful like scaffolding for your writing, but it's not the completed building, right? So outlines are tools, not rules. Lesson number 7. This one is a little difficult. I completely understand that, but get outside feedback on your writing, whether that is critique partners or beta readers, somebody else who knows a little bit about writing, have them read your work and give you feedback on it. I know it can be difficult to find like the perfect critique partner or reliable beta readers. I get that. I'm not trying to say like, oh, just go out and get them. I know it can take time to find those right people. Be persistent in pursuing those right people, because I cannot tell you, my writing skill increased tenfold over the course of about a year after I had feedback from beta readers and critique partners. Other people will see things in your writing that need improvement that you will never see by yourself, because we're just blind to those holes in our writing, to those faults in our writing. You need those outside people to tell you what they are so you can fix them. So again, I know it's hard sometimes to find those good people, but keep at it, be persistent. There are opportunities for like matchups and connecting with other people, other writers. Pursue those things and do your best to try to find somebody who can work with you. And of course you would then reciprocate, right, for them. But that has been the number one thing that has increased or improved my writing ability over the years. Okay, lesson number 8 is actually a little bit of pushback on a piece of advice that I've heard and followed myself. And it's maybe not exactly the best piece of advice. The advice I've heard is write the book you want to read. Now, on the one hand, this is very true, right? Don't write something that you hate, don't try to write something that is perfectly matched to the trends or the things that are selling the best, because, if that isn't something you enjoy, then you're going to be miserable while you work on it, right? Don't do that. However, the book you want to read might not be all that unique or fresh or a new take on an old trope. I took this advice to heart several years ago and wrote a book. I adore this book. I think it is so fun. It's so cute. However, there's nothing really unique about it. It takes a bunch of different tropes and kind of puts them together. And I think this is the first book that I ever queried. It failed. I didn't get an agent with it. And I think part of the reason was, it might have been like decently written, but there was nothing particularly new or interesting about it. It was just a rehash of old things that everybody's seen 10,000 times before. So I did in fact write the book I want to read. And like I said, I do love it very much. It holds a very special place in my heart and in my writing journey, but it's not exactly marketable. And this kind of ties in with maybe a sub lesson here, in that if you want to publish self-pub or trad pub, and if you want to try to make it into a career where it's earning you money, you do need to have some sense of marketability. And I know this is a hot topic because people are like, I should be able to write whatever I want because it's art, and it is. But again, if you want other people to care about it, you need to cater in some manner to the things that other people are interested in. So there's a balance between business and art. It's okay to make money off of your art, and if that's what you want to do, you need to be aware of the current market. I'm not talking necessarily about trends. Those are very short pieces, parts of the market, but the larger market trends you do need to be aware of and incorporate that to some degree into whatever you're working on. Okay, lesson number 9 is a little more of a very practical, I think, piece of advice, and that is to Google your title. Google the names that you've given your characters. Google the made-up place names that you have. If you're writing a fantasy or something where there's like magic in it and you've made up terms that go with your fantasy universe, Google those terms for me real quick just before you get too far with them. I can't tell you how many times I've seen people name their book something that is already famous for something else. I do love frequenting the Pub Tips Reddit. And there was one I saw a while back where the person had named their book, they had titled their book, The Wind Waker. What a very cool title name. Unfortunately, if you Google The Wind Waker, the first result that comes up is going to be The Wind Waker from the Zelda video game franchise. If you don't play video games or you don't care about Zelda, you might not know that, but that is a very well-recognized title by a huge number of people who have any involvement within the video game industry. So you can't use that for your title. People are gonna think it's like a Zelda thing, and it was not. It was like a young adult fantasy or something like that. I also saw one recently, they had named it Heart of Darkness. Very cool title. Unfortunately, it was in fact used by Joseph Conrad in the 1800s whenever he wrote that thing. So like you can't use that. So Google it real quick just to make sure you're not unintentionally copying some other famous thing. Same thing with character names. You don't want to name your heartthrob love interest accidentally after like an axe murderer from the 70s, right? You could also potentially get into trouble if you have like made up fantasy names and maybe it happens to mean something in another language. Like that could be a little awkward depending on what it translates to. So Google that stuff. Just take a few minutes to Google everything and make sure you're not, doing something that's going to come back to bite you in the butt. And finally, lesson number 10, this is something I've learned very recently, and that is if you are entering trad pub or self pub, I think this applies to both, learn about the industry as much as you possibly can before you actually are like entering into it. If you're going for trad pub, before you try to get an agent, you better know a lot about the industry before you start to try to market your self-pub book or you're trying to upload it to Amazon or something. Learn about how that market and that industry works. I've found, especially with trad pub, when I got my agent, when I got my book deal and started talking with an editor, there was like a base level assumption that you kind of know how this works. Nobody came to me and they were like, hey, your book is going to go to copy edits. Let me explain what copy edits is. That was not presented to me. When I got my book deal, they didn't then send me a packet that said like, here's how the book process works in making your book come to life. They kind of assumed that I knew at least the general process. There's very little that has been like directly explained to me about what's happening or the timeline for things. They kind of expect that you know stuff already. So it's totally fine to ask questions. I've certainly asked questions, but some of the basics you really should know about before you get too far into things. And I think that's one thing that is a benefit to not having like your first book picked up by an agent or a publisher. I've seen people who have gotten their stuff picked up where they were like, oh my gosh, like I wrote a book, it got me an agent, it was the first thing I ever wrote, and it also sold. That can be very exciting. And I'm not trying to say like, oh, they did it wrong, or blah, blah. I'm not saying that, but if they've just sort of started to pay attention to publishing and how everything operates, they're going to be hit with like a fire hose of information, and they're not going to potentially not understand everything that's going on. So research carefully, pay attention, and that's going to benefit you greatly the farther you get into the industry. I have certainly learned a lot more over the last 10 years, but those were kind of the 10 that I thought I would share with you today. I hope that was fun. If you've been a writer for any length of time and you feel like you have learned a valuable lesson, let us know what it is in the comments. I'd love to hear your standard writing advice. Maybe you have a hot take or two, let me know. But that's it. Yay for 10 years. I hope I get to do this for a lot more than another 10 or 20 years, frankly. It's a lot of fun. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, you can click the subscribe button. I usually post videos on Fridays. I've got a bunch of videos coming very soon though. I think we're gonna do like a Tuesday, Friday kind of release schedule for all of this stuff. In any case, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a good rest of your day, and I will see you next time. Bye.